Hi everyone, this will be my quick take and summary about NIO finding a partner in Changan for building out battery swapping in China. So this is a bit of news that you are possibly aware of, and I will give you a couple of thoughts about or points how to think about this, and also a couple of expectations that I'm personally having towards this deal. But first of all, a bit of disclosure here. I also just got this comment on Twitter whether or not I am personally receiving any money by NIO directly or indirectly in order to come up with this content, because this user mentioned that my content is usually positive around NIO and I'm not asking the tough questions maybe. So let me say so much. So first of all, I'm a NIO shareholder. So that's possibly also a bit different to some of the other commentators out there, may it be on Twitter or on YouTube or wherever. I'm actually owning the stock, and so that gets me kind of a little bit biased on the company, that's for sure. I'm also more on the positive side on China and the Chinese prospects in this global economy. So you need to know that as a background. So I'm generally having an interest of NIO as a company, NIO as a stock doing well. I'm sharing the vision of the founding team. I'm sharing the vision of the company, and I think NIO can succeed with that vision. Although at some points I also notice some things that I'm not going the way as I have them expected, and then I can also point out some criticism, at which some point I'm also sometimes get a backlash that people think I sold my shares or that I'm not longer positive on a company. So just want to be very transparent with you. I'm rooted, I'm vested in the company. I need them to do well. It's a significant share of my stock holdings and portfolio, and therefore obviously I try to frame them in a positive light, but I'm actually also trying to get them quite neutral as far as I can, but I'm certainly not here to buy into some of those negative narratives out there when I don't find them justified. And with that, I'm not receiving any money from NIO for doing all of this. In general, yes, I'm, as I pointed out before, I'm running a consulting business here with clients also from the automotive industry. None of them is Chinese. And so, no, I'm not pushing an agenda here. In fact, none of our videos and content here is actually sponsored, despite the fact that I get inquiries for that, but I'm usually rejecting that. You also may note that I'm not asking you to buy anything on this channel, and I'm also not featuring any ads in here other than, and that's really a source of income and support to do this work, my Patreon. So this is a paid membership where you can support this channel and where I'm running a network of investors that are interested in the stocks and the Chinese topic that I'm covering on the channel. So that's kind of the funding that I do get, and this is, I think, also a way to stay neutral in a way. But as I just mentioned, I cannot be entirely neutral. I'm certainly biased towards the company doing well. And also, this is why I'm reflecting now on today's news the way I'm doing here. First of all, I've been discussing that with our Patreon members in the community chat yesterday already. I said most likely the news today will be about Changan. So that was the way I read this rumor unfolding. I've not made a speculative video about that other than a Patreon exclusive video yesterday. But to sum it up again, I think what this news is really all about is not even so much about this Changan deal right now, which I think is just one step of something bigger here. So Li Bin in this supposedly rumor message yesterday mentioned that tomorrow they're going to announce a partnership. So we have that news now confirmed today with Changan. And they said they're in talks with 4 more companies. And in the Patreon message yesterday, I said okay, the 4 other companies that I possibly see are Dongfeng, FAW, SAIC, and Bike. So these are the big state-owned enterprises in China, and Changan is one of them. It's actually one of the largest by car volume that they're selling. And yeah, the reason why I thought that these are the 5 companies that they're speaking with is because I think NIO is kind of following a top-down approach here. So what they're doing is they're approaching these state-owned enterprise companies because one reason is they are the joint venture partner of a couple of foreign companies. And the second point is that they are launching their own EV sub-brands. And you need to know as a context, and that's also what one thing that I posted in the Patreon community yesterday is if you look in the battery swapping industry, there are different players out there already today. There's not only NIO doing it, but a main player is actually Alton, which is a NIO capital invested company. And that company already has quite a few links, not only to Changan, but also to the others, state-owned manufacturers that I've just introduced. And they're running pilots and actually already operational, for example, taxi fleets that are using battery swapping, for example, with FAW, Changan, and so on. So to these companies, battery swapping is really not new. They're doing it already today. And so the news today is that Changan is now starting to buy into the NIO battery swapping platform, one more than the Alton platform, which in a way is also a NIO platform, right? And they're going to possibly share the network. We didn't get too much detail on what's going to happen with that, but I want to fly on the high level here, which is, in my point of view, that Changan was just the validation of what's going to happen with those other four big players. I think Changan showed that there is one of those big state OEMs that's buying into that. All of them have been part of a consortium of forming the battery swapping standard in China. NIO is one of the leading forces, and of course, they are always the player to show, look, we've done this at scale, right? And now you've got the first big state OEM to buy into that and say, okay, we're going to take your platform and we're going to develop cars using that platform as well. And so what I'm expecting is that, it's not the last one. Possibly the next one might be FAW. So we have speculated before. I also posted it in my Patreon exclusive videos before that. There's a company called Hongqi. So actually Xi Jinping is driving that car, and this brand may be the next is a FAW sub-brand that might adopt also NIO battery swapping. So I think over time we may get more of those companies buying. And then, for example, the significance here is that, for example, BAIC is the joint venture partner of Mercedes-Benz and Daimler in China. FAW and SAIC, they are the joint venture partner for Volkswagen in the northern and the southern part of China, as well as they're doing their own sub-brands like IO Motors. And now Changan also has, for example, the Avatar brand and so on. So, as you can see, what NIO is possibly doing here is with this top-down approach, they are getting to really where it matters, to those big players that are really then the ones who are kind of letting it trickle down into those sub-brands and joint venture partners if they actually want to do it at some point. But, this way, I think it's just getting too big to ignore at some point. I think that's the rationale behind NIO. And, today's news is, not significant yet in an economic impact in terms of that as of today, they will get, let's say, royalties or people paying for the swaps. No, that's a little bit more out in the future, but it's showing that this thing is going to happen and all of them will join it possibly in the future. And it also has strategic value, for example, now with Changan being the joint venture partner of Ford, Ford being quite, the Ford CEO being quite positive about NIO in the past as well. This is also a way how NIO could possibly play this into international markets, let's say the US market with Ford, if they want to adopt the platform in China through their joint venture partner Changan now, then possibly they want to offer something to NIO in the US, let's say on the charging side, but also maybe on the distribution dealership or any other area, right? This is the way how synergies are starting. This is why Li Bin is speaking of network effects of battery swapping. And I think this is kind of, the long shot here. And this is, again, it's not a short-term thing, and that's also why I'm a long investor. I need to also emphasize this. And I think this is also the fact that Li Bin is currently stressing. Now, what I'm also expecting with this announcement is that this is possibly about even NIO's next platform, so the NT 3.0 platform. That's also the platform possibly where NIO will launch one of their sub-brands, the Alps brand, on, and possibly Changan will be starting to develop new cars using that new platform. It's going to have 800 volt architecture, so a new high voltage architecture. I've discovered or uncovered on this channel before that I've discovered NIO patents that are pointing towards a battery swap system that is interoperable between 400 volt and 800 volt architecture, that it's possibly also having batteries in different sizes that could also be working similar to the CATL chock bar approach, that you have a smaller, a middle, and a larger size battery. I think it's possibly split into two for NIO, but we'll see. I think what we could look towards is that possibly there might be an announcement in the future about new battery swapping technology with maybe the 4.0 generation swap platform. And maybe that's NIO Day, maybe that's somewhere in the next year. But actually, NIO Day would make sense because I think the Alps platform will be rolled out in 2024, so at some point they have to announce it. And I think that's when we kind of see which platform that is exactly in terms of the technical specifics and so on, and what it can do for NIO and then these other players that are coming into it. So again, I think it's mainly a big validation of NIO's business model and NIO's strategic approach. That's how I'm reading the news for today. It's not too much about the short-term gains here and immediate monetization. I think NIO will now rather show what they're going to do with their current system of monetizing that one. And I'll do videos on that in the future more. Again, I think a big unnamed factor here is where I did a couple of videos about is the virtual power plant approach and the way how NIO swap stations are balancing the grid. And with all that, with the Changan buy-in, with NIO swap stations becoming a part of the power outlay, and where China is currently in that regard hint in the early stages, and those power swap stations might be required. With that, I'm expecting also more announcement of, let's say, doubling down on swap stations and a larger build out. Maybe in the future, this build out will be not only financed by NIO anymore, but also by these partners. I think today's cooperation agreement might be one part of that. But I would also not rule out that once more of these 5 players are buying in, maybe at some point this consortium will become a little bit more outgoing, and also maybe still a NIO Power IPO might be on the table at some point in time, but maybe there are a couple more steps necessary on the part also of the energy side of that business. I think the battery swapping side is so much validated for now. It's scalable, it's fast. Maybe the monetization needs to be a little bit more validated, that's for sure. Big question marks around this. Lots of bears talk. The bears really love to talk about the negative aspects of battery swapping in this regard, but I think they possibly will be proven wrong on that as well. But yeah, that's for now. That's where we are with that news as of today, as far as I'm concerned. I hope that was clear. I hope that was insightful. And then thanks for watching. Thanks for your support, and see you in my next videos.